Okay, Marty.
All right.
You have to use your microphones though, and just make sure that the green light's on, please.
Okay, I would like to officially call to order the New Shore and Planning Board meeting for Wednesday, July 13th, 2022. Number one on the agenda. Before I start, number 6, by the way, has been withdrawn. So if anybody is here for number 6, which is the amendment for section 519, that has been withdrawn, and you're welcome to speak out without my noticing you're here. Okay, number 1, Karen and Nathan Stennett, plat 6, lot 2-2, fire number 465, Old Town Road. Public hearing on an application for a combined master and preliminary plan review of a major subdivision of land off of Old Town Road. 1 second, Eric, let me officially open it. I make a motion to open the public hearing. Second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Go ahead.
Good afternoon. I assume the mic is picking me up fine. My name is Eric Wallen. I represent Nathan and Karen Stinnett. They're the applicants. This is a proposal for a 2-lot subdivision. If you recall from our October meeting, it was determined that because we need a waiver, we're requesting a waiver, and actually we've got a couple of waivers we're going to request. That put this from an administrative or a minor into the major category. So we're actually combining 2 stages here, preliminary and master plan, because we all felt that it was because of primarily a waiver regarding the installation of a 20-foot road, which we felt was a little, more than would be needed. And it was agreed we could combine these stages. So the proposal is, if you're familiar with the property on Old Town Road, it's pre-existing non-conforming 2-family dwelling with a couple of outbuildings on the property, a well house in the front. And the proposal is to convert the 2-family dwelling to a 1-family dwelling to eventually improve the large shed in the back to a 513 apartment and create 1 new lot for development. Both lots have frontage on Old Town Road, but we're not going to need a new curb cut. Instead, what we want to do is create or allow the pre-existing driveway, which consists of 2 cement tracks. It's been that way, as I understand, for about 70 years. There's a inscription in the concrete, 1947. And so we want to keep that character. That's it's a historic house. The driveway itself is historic. And we wanted to keep as much of that original as possible. But in doing so, we need a waiver from the requirement that we improve the road to 20 feet all the way back to the existing house. And so that waiver is in front of you. We also are requesting 3 other waivers. We're asking a waiver from the landscaping plan. When we looked at what was necessary to create a landscaping plan for this property, we were told by the engineer that it was several $1,000s just to get what is there now on paper. None of this is quick and none of this is inexpensive. And there are no real landscaping changes proposed. In other words, once the new house is built, there may be some landscaping done that is in the ordinary course of any property ownership, but certainly not relevant to the subdivision itself. Likewise, there's a requirement for a base elevation flood to be listed. We were told that wouldn't be necessary because we're not in a flood zone. And then finally, a waiver for the requirement for surface runoff calculations. The town engineer actually indicated that he had no objection. There was a letter, should be a letter in your package indicating that. And again, the engineer told us $5,000 to $10,000 just to document existing conditions, which are essentially unchanged since that cement 2-track was put in 1947. So we didn't feel it would give you any new information and certainly wouldn't be helpful to anybody else. So again, what we're asking for is approval at this stage I do note from Allison Ring's memorandum, you've got to make a series of findings in order to approve. I've asked Laura Littlefield to be here as a real estate expert just to speak on a couple of those issues. And I'd like to call her as a witness at this time. Why don't you stand here?
I just need to swear the witness in if I can. And you're slightly off camera, but I'll ask you to raise your right hand, please.
Now she's on camera.
Is that better?
Yeah, I
That
could.
better?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
great. Thank you. If you could raise your right hand, do you swear to tell the truth in this matter before the board this evening?
I do.
Okay, thank you. And just state your name for the record again.
My name is Laurel Payne.
Okay, Mr. Wallen, you may proceed.
I've known Laurel for a long time, and that should excuse me for the mistake I just made. So Laurel, what is your profession? Or what has been your profession?
For the past just over 10 years, I've been a real estate agent on Block Island.
How long have you lived here?
Since 1992, year round. I'm proud.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Sorry. Sorry,
You've lived here since
92.
92. And in your time as a real estate agent, have you had to discuss or advise clients regarding zoning and planning issues?
I have.
And do you have familiarity with the comprehensive plan?
I do.
And you've had an opportunity to review the plans that we have before the board tonight?
I have.
In general, do you see anything about the proposal which would impair the purpose of the comprehensive plan?
I do not.
If somebody was to come to you and ask to develop the lot that's being proposed, how would you advise them with regard to the zoning ordinance? Would you explain to them that?
They would have to respect all zoning ordinances and
Okay, great. And again, in reviewing the plan, do you see anything that would have a significant negative impact on the local ecology over there?
I do not.
The lot shape, is it conducive to improvement with a single family house?
It is.
It's not an unusual shape.
It is not an unusual shape.
Do the lots have access to a public road?
They do.
Okay. And do you see anything from the plan that would indicate that there wouldn't be safe circulation of pedestrian or vehicular traffic?
I did not.
Okay. Did you, in reviewing the plan, see anything that would impair the historic or cultural features of the area?
I did not.
That's all the questions I have for you. Thank you.
All
very
right.
much.
Thank you.
Provided with the packet was Alice, the town planner's memorandum. She indicated that the board would have to make certain findings, and the purpose of Laurel's testimony was to give you basis for making those findings. I would, certainly argue that there won't be any unnecessary impairment of scenic views. It's a house that's going to be located on Calico Hill, which is already developed with other single-family homes in a very similar style. It's not prominent on the hill, but it's lower than the existing house on the property. The water supply, there's a letter in your packet, both from the sewer and water department indicating that there's sufficient supply of water and access to sewer. No septic system will be required. As we've said before, there's a two-family house there now. We're going to go to a single family and a single family. almost negligible impact on traffic. It's located in the downtown area. A 10 o'clock ferry in the middle of the winter creates more traffic than this new house will. We've asked for a waiver from surface runoff, but as the town engineer indicated, any new construction requiring a building permit would have to develop surface runoff calculations in order to get the building permit. We are making a slight alteration to an existing stone wall, and the only purpose for doing that is to widen the driveway entrance so that fire vehicles can get up the driveway. You have also a letter from the fire department. They've reviewed the property. They've asked us not only to do that, but also to cut vegetation back to 20 feet, which is not a problem. And there's some overhanging trees they'd like us to cut. Happy to take care of that. And also, they're going to do some grading along the curve of the driveway in order that large fire trucks can get around that a little easier. But essentially, that's existed for a long time. Thankfully, they haven't needed to get a fire truck up there. And in terms of unique or historical archaeological sites, we're unaware of any. Again, the reason for being here as a major is to try to keep that property, in essentially as similar a condition as that it's always been in, with the exception of a new single family house. I have nothing further. Happy to take questions.
Okay, are there any questions? Okay, Gail, I saw her hand first, now I'll go to Sasha.
I just had one, in regard to, because I'm still learning about all the aspects of subdivision as a planning board member, but if you're not already hooked up to town water, can we approve the subdivision if there's a moratorium currently under effect? It's not certain. I mean, if you're already hooked up to town water, is there a difference in the subdivision regulation for, it's 20,000 square feet for a property with town water and town sewer? What is it with that? Because right now, the second lot doesn't have any hook, is that correct?
The second line, until the house is built, it won't have its own hookup. That's correct.
However, it is a two-family house right now, so
The allocation would be.
the allocation
the
would
same.
just, would-
I see Gail's question.
If they were to not be able to be on public water, then their dimensional requirement would be larger for that lot. That's your concern, right? That you're
That's the
raising?
question I
Yeah,
have, is if
yeah.
we're allowed
Yeah, we haven't
to
had that come
make
up
that decision.
before.
Otherwise, it seems very cut and dry.
It's it's within,
There's other permitted uses in that zone too. It's not.
but for this, it's 20,000 square feet minimum within, RC if you're in.
What is
But
it
they're
without-
within the district. I mean, they're within, I would say you'd go, we'd have to base it on that. Because, and they do have the letter from the water company. There's not a moratorium on,
Really a question.
yeah.
Okay.
I hadn't thought of that.
You were scaring me because it's a theoretical question. We don't have a water moratorium, do we?
no.
I was afraid that, that's one of those afraid to ask the
Yeah.
question, but I do have a
If
letter.
you were a hotel, you may have a moratorium on it, but as a family house that's already been a two-family house, you're probably not going to have any problems. I say probably because nothing is ever for sure.
Nothing's ever for sure. They could go pull a building permit.
Oh, it's covered.
Yeah, yeah, understood.
There's
Alright.
a question as to
The
whether
20,000.
there's any additional water.
Well,
They-
this was, I mean, this is there's a two-family dwelling on it now.
No, I understand all that.
That part.
Yeah, each
We're
is-
talking about the water.
Right.
They would probably allocate for a single family. It's when you get to a large amount, additional amount of water that you run into a problem. For example, a hotel. All right. Took care of your question? Yeah. Okay. Anybody else? All right. The first thing I want to take a quick look at is the waivers and to see if anybody has any concerns about any of the waivers. I think they've explained why, and the waivers are requested. And I think that it is not a problem, but I certainly want to give the board a chance to ask any questions or have share any concerns.
Really small question.
Mhm.
You had mentioned getting waiver. Show existing on the plan when you submit.
It's unlikely. It's unlikely. Yeah. Yeah, normally when I mean, what's planned is very much just moving the end of that stone wall, whatever it is, I think it's about 7 feet. And just seed any disturbed areas. That's all that's planned right now. And, you know, when they build a home, of course, you know, every homeowner wants to do better. So, you know, at that point, maybe they do something down there. I don't know.
Go ahead.
I'm curious about something.
Sure.
Right now, many cars are parking below the stone
I saw
wall.
that today.
To whom does that land belong?
As far as I know, the town has an easement or ownership of at least 10 feet, you know, from the
So
road.
it's a town issue, not a homeowner.
Unfortunately, yeah, if the Stennetts went down there and said, get off my property, the people would laugh. Yeah, I noticed it today. That's new to me. Again, I come and go in the winter, so I don't see any of that. And I show up here in the summer and all of a sudden, it's like,
We can bring
What
it
is
up
this?
at a town council.
and it was brought up at the last town council meeting I was here for.
Didn't know that. Good.
It's
can
a
see on
problem.
the
You're talking
survey.
about it. And I know Cindy Lasser was talking about it and saw it for myself. There's a certain amount past the edge of the pavement that belongs to the town.
Right, and you measure generally from the center.
Center of the road out to the
Out.
curb or beyond the curb.
A certain distance.
And it's so.
You
it's
see
still
the
would be town.
survey the survey plan shows the property line basically along the stone wall. It does, there's not.
That's where I would say.
So if there are no other questions on the waivers, we'll go and look at the findings. I have not seen any hands up.
I have one more question.
Okay,
Am I supposed to recuse myself since I am one of the butters who received the letter?
yes, I think you are. Goodbye.
I'm just grateful that circle of abutters didn't include all of you, because it included everybody else.
I'm pretty far away. It would be really hard to reach me without ticketing the whole island.
I got Stan Nizio on High Street. That was the
Okay.
surprise.
Eric has already addressed in his testimony some of the information on the findings, but we will go through them and make sure that we do not have any further questions or comments and decide that they are acceptable. Number one, since you all do not have this, I'll just read them. Every land development and subdivision shall be consistent with the requirements of the New Shoreham Comprehensive Plan or shall satisfactorily address the issues where there may be inconsistencies. I do not find that there are any problems with this change from a 2-family to a 1-family and an additional 513. Anybody else have any comments? Okay. Number 2, each lot in any subdivision shall conform to all standards and provisions of the New Shoreham zoning ordinance. And I think that is not a problem. Any comments? Okay. 3, there shall be no significant negative environmental impact from the proposed development as shown on the final plan with all required conditions for approval. Again, you've discussed the road, so we don't know how you're going to handle that, so that's fine. Number 4, the subdivision will not result in the creation of individual lots with such physical constraints to development that building on those lots according to pertinent regulations or building standards would be impractical. And again, you're using the same entrance and so forth that you've been using for, I believe you said the last 70 years, so that's
At
fine.
least.
Right of ways, utility are all taken care of. Number 5, all proposed land developments and all subdivision lots shall have adequate and permanent physical access to a public road. Lot frontage on a public street without physical access shall not be considered compliant with this regulation. Again, you've got your entrance already done. 6, every project or subdivision shall provide for the safe circulation of pedestrian and vehicle traffic, adequate provisions for control of surface water runoff, suitable building sites, and the preservation of natural, historical, or cultural features that contribute to the attractiveness of the community. And you have discussed the drainage that we'll take care of when you build the 513. So that will satisfy the question on that one. Any comments or questions from the board? All right. The design and location of streets, building lots, utilities, drainage improvements, or other improvements in each subdivision or project shall not create flooding or soil erosion. Again, we'll address drainage calculations when you do the 513. And number 8, all proposals must show evidence of the fact that the project will not A, unnecessarily impair scenic views, B, burden the existing water supply, C, result in increased traffic congestion, D, create any ground or surface water pollution, E, alter or cut through existing stone walls except as essential to provide safe and necessary access to the property, and only upon approval of the planning board, and F, disturb any identified unique and or significant historical or archaeological sites. And again, you addressed why you're touching a small section of the stone wall. Questions from the board? Questions from the audience?
I do maybe want to talk a little bit about the meeting with the emergency officials and the sketch that was drawn up. There's like a portion of the land to be leveled. Can you explain that? Like what
Yeah,
was discussed and how that's going to be handled, and maybe the planning board
Right,
needs to
so-
think about
so-
conditions on that.
On the final plan, we're going to show that grading
Yeah.
on the plan. As I said before, after the discussion with the fire department, they wanted not only the widening, but asked us also to cut the overhanging trees back and to make sure that vegetation was cut back 20 feet. But they were also concerned about the arc of that road, and that is where they would like us to flatten that out a bit. So they've actually drawn a sketch, and that's included in your package. So that's already gone to the engineer for, being added to the final plan.
Okay. Yeah, because I see it's not shown here, and it goes a little bit outside that easement area, but it's, yeah.
It doesn't concern us to do that. That's fine. We're happy to do that for the fire department.
and will it be grass? How is that going to be?
Just grass for
Yeah.
right now. Yeah, any disturbed area will just be reseeded.
Allison, anything else?
No, just the planning board, maybe thinking about after, like having fire officials or the town engineer kind of inspect that it's following construction, that it meets the plan.
Yeah, we can put that in the findings, absolutely.
Because it doesn't have details on the grade, like at what, I don't know what specifics maybe were recommended or agreed to as far as that
Yeah,
leveling.
yeah,
And so,
The fire department's not engineers, but
right.
But
so
we'll make
that's-
sure the engineer understands their concerns and levels it appropriately for the size of their fire engine. The idea is that they should be able to get up there with a vehicle. And so if you put it in your findings that
Yes,
the fire department will have an opportunity to inspect it after that grading's been completed, and will have authority to ask for additional
engineer.
change.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Are they constructing, you mean? Well, the plan, they're gonna show the leveling, the area on the final plan, but as far as construction of, when is
Yeah,
that going to occur?
so what, there's two options, as I understand it, before recording final plan. And that is to either complete the improvements prior to recording or put up a bond. It's our intention to complete the improvements before recording. So the fire department would certainly have the ability to say, hey, not good enough, come back and take some more ground before we'd be complete with those improvements.
any other comments or questions? Last chance before I close the hearing. Okay, I make a motion that the hearing be closed. Do I have a second?
Sorry.
Okay, all those in favor say aye. I will also make a motion that we send a positive findings with the notation on the drainage and notation on the construction of the, I guess you call it the curve that would be going into the around the wall. And the fact that you will go take the 20 feet on either side to open up the road.
You need to amend it to say that you're approving the master.
That's what I mean, exactly. Thank you for helping me with the wording. Okay, do I have a second? Okay. Any further comments or questions?
So conditions, are you talking about? those?
Yeah.
Okay,
They,
what we just discussed.
well, the three things
level.
basically we just discussed.
The level
The
regarding,
leveling, the the road,
Clearing of the road.
clearing of the road
Yeah.
and so forth, and the stone wall.
stone wall, allowing it to be widened but
Widened,
maintained,
but
but we can put it
maintained
like Mary.
So that it can be accessed readily by fire and rescue.
And we'll also include about surface runoff calcs at building permit.
Yes.
Yeah,
If it needs to be stated again.
inspection. Okay,
Okay, got it?
yes.
All right, all those in favor say aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations.
Thank you all
Thank you
very much.
Good. All right, number two, the Nature Conservancy, Plat 3, Lot 106. Request for a Mylar to be signed off as a subdivision is not required. And just for the record, I do want to state that my son does work for the Nature Conservancy, so that's on the record. Yes, Charlotte, come up and just explain what and why.
So the Nature Conservancy, we own this parcel on Corneck Road. Of course, I don't remember the lot, plat and lot of it.
3106.
It's Plat 3, 106.
I'm sorry, I thought it was 106.
I'm sure-
Anyway, so we own this parcel, the Black Eye Conservancy has an easement over it. We share a boundary with two of our neighbors and there's never been any kind of delineation of that boundary. And as you know, the properties change hands or whenever, we wanted to make sure that we know where our property line is and where there is, so we stored our property and they so basically that's the purpose of the survey. And so the engineer said to have it, recorded here. So I don't know.
I think that's fine. And are there any questions?
I have a question on what, this dash line that says parcel division line, why is that on there?
I was wondering about that too, because I had never seen that, but I guess when the engineer went, 'cause we were like, oh, we wanted to delineate these lines, and he said, well, he really needed to go back in history and really take into account the whole property before it was subdivided into these 4 lots. And I guess when he was doing the calculate or figuring it out, if you see like down here in the sequence of conveyance, it looks like at one point it was conveyed as a.
Oh, that's not on, wait. Oh, okay, I zoomed in. Okay, that's why. I was like, that's not on mine, but that's because I just printed
No, actually,
a,
I'm wrong about that. They were, I don't know, but we own.
it's one lot. I mean,
This is one lot, yeah.
my concern is with, so what, the planning board doesn't review or like approve, any survey. It's just that what we're looking for is to make sure it's not a subdivision. So it's
Yeah.
signing off saying
We're
that
not-
planning board approval is not required. But
Yeah.
when you
We're
see
not-
something like this that says parcel, I would,
have no idea. We're not-
yeah, so could we, I would say delete that
Should I ask?
label, parcel division line, delete it, and then you're all set to record. Yeah, I would just, that's like kind of,
So are you just going back?
No,
Or-
no,
okay,
no.
Just have him.
Just work with Jen.
Yeah, that's why I put it It looks like it's a subdivision.
Yeah. I know it was very tricky
Mhm.
trying to figure it out based on what we had in the records, so.
Okay.
Basically, you're just running it by us. You've done that. So from now on, you can work with Jen as soon as you get that little
Okay.
section fixed. So thank you very much for
All right,
coming.
great, all right, thank you.
Flower Estate LLC, Plat 2, Lot 30-1 and 30-2, fire number 1033 Corn Neck Road, application for an administrative subdivision of 2 lots on Corn Neck Road.
Good afternoon. My name is Scott Spear. I'm an attorney at Blish and Kavanaugh. And I see that Matt Landry has gone dark on us up there. I work with Matt and Bill Landry, and obviously they will be recusing themselves this evening on this very minor application. This is an administrative subdivision to do nothing other than to move a boundary line between 2 existing lawful buildable lots. And I'm asking for a conditional approval, not an approval, a conditional approval, because this change in this boundary line is part of a bigger project, which is to construct a new home on one of the 2 lots. And the house is of a size that exceeds the by right standards. So we have a special use permit application that's been filed before the zoning board. So this is a preliminary step to begin that process. The reason the lot line is being moved is to help the family that's building the home put the house in the most appropriate site on one of the 2 lots. The architects and the landscape designers and the engineers have done a great job of really vetting this property, which is surrounded by conservation land, to make sure that the house is eventually sited in the most appropriate location on the property, taking into consideration all of the environmental features, the topography, making sure they stay clear of any wetlands so that there's no wetland relief required, and making sure that we don't need any setbacks from zoning, which we would if we tried to put the house in the location without moving the lot line. So we're basically making one lot about 27,000 square feet bigger, and the other lot will be about 27,000 square feet smaller, but they will both continue to be conforming lots. So that the moving of the boundary line doesn't impact anything to do with their building, their buildability or their access to public streets, doesn't change anything. And so we're just asking for a preliminary approval so that we can then take this plan to the zoning board. They will then refer it back to you. We'll begin the process that you're familiar with, going through the special use permit route.
Okay.
And Marky, I just wanted to mention that a year ago for a different project, and you recommended that they record the subdivision prior to going for the special use permit, and that was also the recommendation of Bill Landry. And that's what they did.
Okay.
Well, this is a conditional approval, right, Jen? We had a discussion about whether it would be conditional or actual, and we decided to go with a conditional approval. So the subdivision should not be recorded because it doesn't take effect unless we get the approval on the special use permit. Otherwise, if the special use permit isn't granted, then the design proposed in this plan may not be the plan that they want to use in the future. If we get before the planning board or the zoning board and recommendations are made to alter that boundary line, for whatever reason may come into play, it would require the applicant to then go back and do another administrative subdivision to reconfigure that line if recommendations are made in the permitting process, so that the plan shouldn't be recorded at all because it's a conditional approval.
Okay, well, that makes it very interesting, particularly since I've looked at the plans and I'm a little concerned about the size of the design that you are going to go to the zoning board with. And I know we'll have a chance to have more input on that second time around, but I want to make sure that you understand that you are over our limits and we are very concerned about that. So
Right.
ask that you pass that along to the owners, because they may want to think about doing some reconfiguration. All right, questions or comments?
Can we approve a conditional subdivision? I mean, is that taking place?
You've
We
done
can't-
it for major and minor subdivisions, but not for an administrative subdivision, other than the one where you did have them recorded prior to submitting, and it was a variance application.
It could be approved and not recorded. I mean, you could also, is that an option that, as far as, it doesn't become, the land isn't subdivided unless the owner records the subdivision. So the planning board could approve it and then you choose not to.
Yeah, I don't have a
record,
problem
you know,
with
that's
an
also-
approval as long as we don't have to record it, because I think you understood the situation. If the lot
Yeah.
line needs to be adjusted during the discussions with the planning and zoning board,
Mhm.
I would not want to have to go back and go through another administrative subdivision to move the line again. So,
That's the question. That you can't prove it without it being recorded and then set in stone.
You could do, I mean, you can do conditional, you can approve it and they can not record it, or, I mean, I think Jen's just bringing up the point about a process that happened last year, so that was what she's raising, but you certainly have the ability to do.
It seems to
those.
me we can do that on the basis that as long as, if you move the line again, you do not create a non-conforming lot, is what I've seen. Because I don't think we have any say over how it's going to be developed at this point, because we don't have the plan in front of us. And they have, in my opinion, every right to apply for moving the line, as long as the line doesn't create non-conforming lots.
That is true.
It sounds like a conditional approval.
Mary, if we go that route, I think that might work, Other questions or comments?
I had a question about the driveway. I mean, there's a note in here saying driveway easement area has not been finalized. So what is, I mean, that's part of the subdivision.
right,
plan,
that's a
so-
very similar argument to the one about whether or not we should
Right.
record this plan, because
Yeah.
we don't know
Right.
what the boards are gonna eventually say on the siting of the house and where the driveway would actually be. So to go through the engineering expense and to put that on a plan would really be kind of a waste of time at this stage.
But in this case, the driveway is kind of more like the road access versus, and you know, we're not really talking about a driveway. You're talking about access to the property, and that's,
Right.
I would think, kind of an important part of the subdivision.
And, yeah, and they're gonna need to deduct the right of way from the calculation for, so that- and before they go through a a zoning board application without the proper.
We're not doing subdivision, right?
Right.
Well, it depends, if you're approving it, conditionally approving it, then you are, but there's no access.
Well, we're
No.
conditionally approving a lot line change.
Yeah,
It's
but
an administrative subdivision is what we've got here.
Right, but
If
it's.
I'm reading this right.
That's correct.
We can't approve a subdivision, preliminary subdivision.
No, that's,
Yeah, we're just approving a lot.
But it's the required findings, right? I mean, you can look at different aspects, right?
So our
Um,
conditional approval can be conditional on when you do decide where to move the line, that information be provided.
That access is
So-
on maps. No.
I think that has to be shown on the plan prior to approval. If that's part of the finding requirements that you would be putting in your motion. What if the lot size isn't conforming then? Because the driveway or the easement access is,
The lots already exist, correct?
That's correct. And they're both buildable lots as is right now. So that the supporting,
Access in the deed.
yeah, the supporting access is already of record. And when it comes to actually designing the driveway, again, the idea was to create as much flexibility dealing with comments from the boards rather than putting it in stone and having to revise that as well. I feel comfortable as the applicant with the plan, and I don't see that there's any harm to the town with a conditional approval of this plan. Typically, the fear is on the applicant with getting conditional approvals, wanting to make sure that their rights are protected. But in this case, there's no harm to the town with this type of an approach because you ultimately control this process from this day forward with the fact that we'll be back before the planning board. You'll be reviewing this for development plan review and recommendations to the zoning board. The zoning board will have a healthy review of it as well. So all of these issues can be taken care of. So we're just looking for a conditional approval so we can get to the next stage and start doing the hard work and really going through and vetting all of these issues.
Makes sense to me.
You could send it to the town solicitor. For review.
Yes, I think that might make us feel a little more comfortable.
Right, prior to. For conditional.
Can you repeat that? I can't hear you.
Me?
I can't hear you.
We could send it to the town, the new town solicitor for review prior to approving or voting to have conditional approval.
Well, that's only problematic if it delays the continuing process going forward with the application. I mean, this is clear. This is clearly an issue that could have been flagged before we even came this evening, and we could have worked through it. But if waiting for this decision is going to delay another 30 days or 60 days to get before the zoning board on an issue that really is not an issue, I think there's an overthought going on here. This is not a problem for us or for the town. A simple conditional approval. Nothing's going to get recorded. The plan's not going to get recorded. It's just really a step that we need to go through so that we can get the process started with the planning board and the zoning board.
When are you scheduled to go before zoning?
Well, I was hoping to get on the zoning on the 27th, so they could just simply refer it over to you. But we've already had a 30-day delay being required to bring this step here. I understand these are long processes, and the applicants have to be prepared for eventualities, busy calendars, being last on an agenda, having something in front of you that's very busy. But my goal is to try to be efficient with your time and with our time. And I'd hate to get snagged on something here that really is not an issue.
It may not be an issue, but the comfort level of the board is not quite as high as I think I might like it to be, which is why I like the idea of having the solicitor take a look at it before we actually vote on it.
Can I ask what the solicitor?
Yes, you may.
Specifically, what are they gonna look at? Like, what are they looking at? What, like a legal opinion on what?
A legal opinion on whether or not we can do a conditional approval, which I believe we can, but I'm not a lawyer.
You can do a conditional approval. I think the question was that Jen raised was whether or not the zoning board can take action on approving that development plan, the special use permit, the large house with the lot line not being already, like not knowing all those calculations or knowing what. So it's really more of a zoning board question.
Wouldn't it have been determined before the application was presented though?
Yes, the option was given to me. Yeah.
I thought we were debating the right of way at this point.
So if you were looking at this just as a subdivision without the next step of a development,
Right.
you could approve the lot line change because they're removing a lot line. But because it's conditional and they're going to the zoning board with calculations that might not be accurate if they're gonna move a right of way or put a new right of way in, or that could change all of the calculations. Then they're also reviewing it based on this new plan that hasn't been recorded yet. If they just take it and record it, then there isn't an issue. It's the conditional part of it.
But it's a couple minutes ago, we said I thought we said we could give it. And the stumbling block seemed to be the right of way.
The right of way.
On the plan.
Right, for the
I'm just trying to
calculations.
make
Yep,
sure I
it's
understand this.
right, it's the calculations that the zoning board's gonna look at that might not actually be identified.
But when they go to zoning, then wouldn't they present a plan with rights of ways on them so that those calculations can be made?
Right, those calculations have already been done.
But you're saying you don't know where the right of way is gonna go.
Yeah, well, we've made an estimate of a proposed driveway for the purposes of our calculations, but that's before the zoning board, not this
No,
board.
that it's both, because if you're putting in a legal access through one lot to the other, the zoning board needs to know the, and this board, they need to know the dimensions of it to make sure you have enough lot area.
Well, there's certainly, there can be no question that there's enough lot area here. These lots are huge. So there can be no issue that there could be confusion about lot area. If the approach that you're driving toward is not what we discussed over the phone when you asked me, do you want to do a conditional approval or a regular approval?
No,
And
I
we had
said
a-
that in the past, they've done an approval where they record it.
Yeah,
It
and,
isn't conditional.
and you asked me whether we wanted to do conditional or not. And I said, let's do conditional because it made the most sense. If to move this forward, to satisfy you, Jen, we could make this a final approval and all of these issues would then go away. As you pointed out, it's just an administrative subdivision. It's just moving the lot line. So if we said, let's not make it conditional, I withdraw the request to make it conditional. Let's just have an administrative subdivision. You could approve that tonight and we'd be done. And we could go to the zoning board. So that's the way to do it then. That is impractical, it's unnecessary, it removes flexibility, but we can do that. Because I want to advance the case, my client wants to advance the case, and we'll do it that way.
I think it's cleaner when the zoning board's looking at it and they don't have accurate numbers, yes.
Okay.
Because another point to make, and I'm jumping the gun here, and I'm very new to all of this, but even the right of way is gonna be on lot one and you're developing lot two. So the dimensions of the right of way on lot one will not affect the development of lot two. Is that correct?
Correct.
So it's not dimensions that we need to concern ourselves with.
That's correct.
But generally, they are.
Right, but because it is in a subdivision, I'm not by any means trying to defend, I'm trying to understand that, if we're not approving a subdivision, why the right of way that isn't on? I guess it's on one of them.
It's
I'm
generally.
just trying to think out loud of what the zoning laws are. I understand the zoning laws.
Yeah,
Makes sense, your question.
yeah, the right of way shows that there is a right of way to the lot,
Yes.
so you can get to the
We all
lot.
agree on that.
That's what's necessary to satisfy the buildable nature of the lot. What's missing is where the driveway is going to go from the lot line to the house. That's the only thing that hasn't been shown yet.
And it could affect lot one, but even if it's 40 feet, why that's only 12,000. Definitely have enough land.
Right.
With the biggest right of way that anyone would ever want.
On lot one.
Right, but
on lot one.
Right, but
but
generally.
the zoning board is gonna look at the percentage, so that is something that they need to.
Sure.
It's an important part of the zoning application, so. I would hate for them to go through an entire zoning board process and then find out that their numbers don't match or something's wrong, and they have to start over again. So, I
No.
mean, providing all of the information.
But again, the right of ways on lot one. Developability of lot two.
That's isn't the developability of lot two, isn't that just, was it stated earlier that that's gonna be a special use permit? Application down the line?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
So-
But you don't deduct right of ways when you're developing your land, you're building your house.
You do, you deduct it from build it from
Oh,
the
it's
lot
just-
area for the percentage.
For the 10%.
4%, 3%, depending on what you're doing.
Your driveway is deducted from your 4%.
If it's a right of way, if it's a.
But is it a right of way on lot two? It's a right of way on lot
One.
I don't know, if that's what you were saying earlier, that you.
Yeah, it's a right of way on lot one. On lot two, it's just a driveway from the lot line to the house. And that's what's been left
And
off.
that's not changed.
Right, lot one's not changing at all. The right of way access is where it is.
Oh, okay, so for lot one, this thick dashed, is this an existing easement or going to be a new easement
Yeah,
area?
you were saying a new easement.
Is this an existing easement or a new easement, this driveway access on lot one?
That is existing. I'm not sure that that's the same location. I don't think there's a description in the deed on where it is, but that is the right of way that'll be used. So it is shown on the plan. I think Jen's
It's
good
not
point.
labeled as far as getting back to like the subdivision review, I don't see it labeled as an easement or right of way.
Right, so that's,
on the subdivision plan, but you have access, there's access easements along the southern border of the property and to access the lot. The planning board in approving a subdivision needs to ensure that you have physical access, right, to the lot.
Well,
So
that,
you have that here. Like,
yeah,
so this is the access to that lot. Because this right now on the, on the plan, it's not an easement, it's not shown on your subdivision plan.
Because there isn't any.
well, we can put a label on it. I mean, if we're to a point now where all we're looking for is a label, we can add the label
Right,
to it.
but do you have, is it recorded? Is it?
Yeah, there's an easement. That separate lot has an easement to it. That's why the building official gave us a zoning certificate saying we have 2 buildable lots, is because there is existing access to lot 2, and the existing access to the second lot goes across the first lot.
Okay,
So
maybe
we're
it
back.
just needs to
It's
be-
not shown.
Yeah.
So it's not that we're asking just for a label, it's just, it's not showing as an easement on,
Well, we can
Any
label it,
of
we
the-
can label it as an easement so that it shows it as an easement. That's a condition of your approval that I have no objection with at all.
does it exist? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, why wasn't it shown?
It's in the deeds, but I don't think we're allowed to adjust what is property.
Well, you need to show easements of record on a survey plan.
Where it's our job to adjust the accuracy.
Yeah, because we usually have
Hmm.
plan that's a survey of the site so that we have accurate numbers.
In theory, it may have been easier just to not show the house at all on this plan.
Yeah, well,
And
that's. the
just show a lot
recommendation.
line, but again, we're trying to do this in a way that is giving the most information to the boards. We're trying to work with the boards. We're trying to process it through the boards, to have flexibility with the boards. And it's just a simple lot line movement. There is access, the standards are all established. And any of the issues with locations of the driveway, we will be dealing with when we go through the special use process, and we'll be back. We'll be back before this board on the same plan. So all of the issues that you have that are significant can be addressed, and we'll be going through all of them.
Okay, any further questions? Go ahead.
Just in the lot 2 with the proposed site and setbacks, there's a limit from the edge of the proposed built site to the freshwater wetlands. It's fairly close, it's just 6 feet. You count those 2 points. Just something to be aware of.
Right, yeah, we're very aware of it. We're very sensitive to that. And we've made sure that we stayed outside of the jurisdictional wetlands. And that was part, again, about moving things to the best location to protect the environment as well. But thank you for making that note.
That's all I know.
So is everybody satisfied on this driveway slash easement?
Yes.
It has to be labeled.
I think it just needs to be.
It has to be like, yeah,
that it is an
it's-
easement,
Yeah.
a legal easement, so that it's, you're approving something that has access to.
but this,
So, right, but
this lot's already, like, if it was surveyed, it's a lot of record. Whereas it's shown in town hall, that's an easement. Shouldn't be here.
It should be on the plan, yes.
so it's not shown as far as the actual subdivision plan, which is what you would be
Yeah.
reviewing and approving. So not that one that I was just referencing, because it doesn't show that access on the administrative subdivision that's before you tonight. So I think you just, that's not part of your review for the subdivision application. The lot has access, an existing access easement along the southern border right here. So that's what they're
That
demonstrating their
satisfies the
access
requirement.
is.
Right.
So we're kind of looking ahead a little bit at this site plan and showing in the future, I mean, you're going to have to record an easement if you're going to access lot 2 through lot 1. You'll want an easement, obviously, if it doesn't exist. So,
But
but
what you
that,
have-
as far as for the administrative subdivision, you just need to make sure that the lots have access, and they do. It's just not maybe what in the future they will utilize as
So what
the
you're holding
access.
out, that meets the requirement, what you're holding,
As far
as
as,
far as access,
Just the subdivision.
right? That's
yeah,
what
this
it's all-
process question is a little bit different, but as far as the administrative subdivision, the lot line change, I mean, the lots meet their minimum developable land area.
Yeah.
They have existing access. So the one thing would be removing the actual proposed main house with the square footage. Like, that's not something I would recommend approving, like have that removed off the administrative subdivision plan, because we don't know what the size of that home and the footprint is because it hasn't been reviewed.
Yeah.
So as long as the proposed structures are removed because they may or may not be approved in that configuration and size, then it could be recorded. I mean, that's my opinion, but.
I would agree with that.
Okay,
Me too.
all right.
May I ask a question? Now that we have, now that we've sort of resolved the issues with that plan, can we go back now and reconsider the conditional approval of that plan? Or do we still have to record that plan? I mean, now we've got an agreement that we've got a plan that works, it's within your jurisdiction, you can approve it. Right of ways are in place, we have access, we're good. Is it?
Depends if you're moving it, like, as shown on lot 1.
Well, it's just a question procedurally, whether we have to record this or not, because we want to get to the zoning board, and I want to make sure, Jen, that if we get a conditional approval and this isn't recorded, it's not going to stop us from getting to the zoning board to begin our process. I don't think it should. I mean, as an attorney practicing for 38 years, this is not a problem. I just want to make sure that we don't run into a problem the next time I get in front of the folks, and all of a sudden someone's now saying it's a problem.
Well, I'm not gonna speak to the planning board, but if you want.
Well, you're the one that controls getting on the zoning board agenda, so you're the gatekeeper. I need to make sure you're comfortable getting me through the gate to the zoning board.
That's, if the planning board approves it, it's not approval pending the.
Okay. Conditional approval it is,
Okay.
if you're so inclined, obviously.
But if it's a better idea than a full-on.
All right, good. Gail, make a motion and we can vote on it.
Make a motion that we
Do all this.
conditionally approve this lot line.
Second.
Okay, any further questions or comments? All right, Chris.
Should the conditional portion be specified? Like conditional upon what
Allison?
specifically?
It's the approval of the special use permit.
At
So if they receive
our level?
the approval of a special use permit, then you can go ahead and record
Record the
the
subdivision,
subdivision.
Yes.
And I don't want to keep talking. Because if you got approval, you could, not conditional approval, but just approval, you could just then record whenever you choose to, I guess, within the time frame. Could ask for an
Yeah.
extension, but,
Right,
okay,
and then at the
yeah.
structures.
Okay,
the
yes.
plan, So it's a clean,
On the plan that's submitted?
the plan is recorded.
Yeah.
The plan is recorded, because you won't see it again.
Right.
And do you want the right-of-way labels?
I guess it should be the subdivision.
Access.
All right, before we vote
Yeah.
on it, Allison, would you read back to us what you've got? So that we're all on the same page here. This is a little confusing.
It's just the planning board is approving the administrative subdivision. Condition, it's a conditional approval, subject to the applicant receiving a special use permit for their development of their single family dwelling. And then, the condition was, as far as the proposed, what is shown on the administrative subdivision plan, the proposed structures have those removed from the subdivision plan prior to recording.
Okay.
Okay. Very good.
We all agree on what
We got it.
what we're voting on.
We're good.
Okay, all those in favor say aye. Anybody opposed? Motion passed.
Thank you very much. Look
Thank you
forward to
for your
seeing you
patience. I am
again
sorry
somewhere
it
down the
was very
road.
confused. I was very confused along with everybody else, so we got there.
And he had a good time.
He earned his money, let's put it that way. Okay.
All right.
All right. Number 4. John and Corman Hunt, plat 4, lot 16 and 17, fire number 622 Neck Road, and fire number 1065 Neck Road. Application for administrative subdivision to merge 2 developed lots into a single lot. All existing buildings to raise and a new single-family dwelling and accessory building to be constructed. The application is conditional upon zoning relief. Right?
I rather wish I wasn't before you with a conditional application right now.
Oh,
However, I think this is relatively simple. We've got 2 developed substandard lots of record. We have a plan coming before the zoning board to tear every building down and build a single family dwelling on it with some outbuildings. We'll reduce the existing 4,502 square feet of footprint to 3,358. We'll reduce the building lot coverages of 7.63% and 6.65% to a single building lot coverage of 5.43%. We will fix one existing 5-foot setback by making it over 50%, 50 feet. And on the other side, where there's a 40-foot setback, we'll keep the same 40-foot setback. We want to approve it again conditionally, because unless they get the zoning approval for the variances, they don't want to give up the existing buildings. That's it in a nutshell. Tom Principe, their engineer, is here if you have any questions. But basically, we're asking for a conditional approval for this so we can go before the zoning board, get the variances. Then, once we get the variances, record the subdivision plan Mr. Philip Principe has prepared a revised plan based on Allison's comments, which remove all proposed structures, show the existing structures, and specifically state that they're to be raised. So once your final plan would show the existing property as a single lot with all the structures on it, all of which would be to be demolished. We can't not show them because they're there.
Mhm.
So I'm just curious. Can you literally, this is a what if kind of question. What if we make it all into one lot and there are 2 structures on that? And at some point, let's say, just say they change their minds. Will that lot be legal?
The reason we're doing this is because they want to build new structures.
I know.
Yeah, if you make it into a lot, let's say we get the permission from
Yeah.
the zoning board, we record the subdivision that says they're to be demolished. The lot is not legal until they are demolished.
That's the question.
Yeah, they would, at that point, they would have to demolish. And that's why they don't want to record it until they also have the right to rebuild.
Gotcha.
It appears as though they'll be reducing the number of overall bedrooms on the property. So the septic system will be combined smaller.
I can answer that question. Yeah, Tom Principe Engineering Company.
Hey, Tom,
Glad you invited.
Tom, I just have to swear you in if you don't mind. Raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth in this matter before the board this evening?
I do.
Okay, thanks, Tom.
Thank you. Again, Madam Chair, members of the board, Tom Principe Engineering Company. And to answer your question, actually, the 2 parcels on the property right now, there is an existing 5-bedroom dwelling and an existing 4-bedroom. So technically, it's a total of a 9-bedroom system. So right now, I'm so sorry about that. Right now, we do have our DEM approval. We don't have the physical approval in the mail yet, but it has been reviewed and approved by the DEM. And our system is currently for a 6-bedroom. So it is being reduced, to answer your question. And we are utilizing pre-treatment technology and denitrification. So we'll recharge and treat that wastewater before it gets recharged into the ground.
And in this case, we don't have any road or right-of-way issues, thank goodness, because the rights-of-way are adjacent to the existing property and are not changing.
Questions?
Nope.
I had a question on conditional, Matt, conditional approvals. Do you have a recommendation on what the time frame, like to put within the decision, a time frame that action needs to be taken? How long does the conditional approval last?
The conditional approval this evening. I mean, Joe, when are you scheduled to go before zoning? Do you know?
We're actually scheduled before zoning for scheduling July 27th. So if you put the normal 1-year period for a subdivision, we
Right.
should be fine.
Yeah. Also, I would recommend the 1-year period. That's fairly standard with most
Yeah.
approvals, and there's usually an opportunity for them to come back and
Right.
request an additional 1-year period if needed. So I think a year is appropriate, opening it up for that opportunity for them to
Solid.
come if they had to.
So that works for us.
Okay, I'll include that in the decision.
We've got our findings, which I've already read once today, but we'll go through them real quickly, see if there are any questions or comments that you have. Every land development and subdivision shall be consistent with the requirements of the New Shoreham Comprehensive Plan. Any questions on that? Okay. Each lot and any subdivision shall conform to all standards and provisions of the ordinances. No significant negative environmental impact from the proposed development as shown on, well, we haven't gotten to the final plan yet, so that doesn't really apply. Subdivision will not result in the creation of individual lots. We've taken care of that. Proposed land development and all subdivisions are adequate and permanent physical access. You've done that with frontage. Every project or subdivision shall provide for safe circulation of pedestrian and vehicle traffic. Adequate provisions for control of surface water runoff, suitable building sites, and preservation of natural, historical, or cultural features that contribute to the attractiveness of the community. And the design and location, of street, building lots, utilities, draining improvements, and other improvements in each subdivision or project shall not create flooding or soil erosion. Do that, and all proposals will show evidence that the project will not unnecessarily impact scenic view, burden the water supply, increase traffic congestion, ground or surface pollution, alter or cut through existing stone walls, except as essential for safe and necessary access, disturb and identify unique and or significant historical or archaeological sites. Nope. I don't see any problems with that either, okay? Any other questions? Then, shall we make a motion for conditional approval of a administrative subdivision to merge two developed lots into one single lot? All in-
Second.
Okay,
But like the last, do we have to have a condition?
I think we should have condition, the 1-year time period that Bill talked about, and the existing buildings to be raised, the 2 buildings and, or all the buildings, I guess would be a better way to put it. And the new single dwelling and accessory building to be constructed.
Technically, though, we don't need to put a limit on the number of accessory buildings, right?
No, that's why I said all buildings.
Just open.
Yeah, I don't think you get.
Right.
They may, something may get changed.
Okay.
Single family versus two. Just have to note that it's single, turning into single family versus.
It would be, yeah, in the condition, it would be subdivision. You don't need to say it. They don't have to. I mean, they can work a lot, not the-
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, they could still have the two.
Oh, no, we'd have to be consistent, we'd have to be consistent with the zoning ordinance. And by merging
This
them,
doesn't have to be set.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Okay, it's been seconded.
It's fine.
Any further questions?
No?
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
This is at least easier.
It's sometimes easier to go in second.
Yes,
Yeah,
practice makes perfect.
I guess it is.
Thank you very much. Okay. Number 5. Paul and Blake Felipe, plat 19 lots 9-1 and 2, fire number 912 Champlin Road, application for an administrative subdivision of land off of Champlin Road. Now, were you given a copy of the memo that we got from our lawyers today?
Just
Yes.
just received it.
Okay. So with that in mind, you're welcome to say whatever you would like, but I don't think you're going to approve anything today.
Sure. What issue, Madam Chair, would you like me to focus on first? It seems there were 2 issues raised by your council.
Well,
Paragraph 4.
let's start however you want. It's not a problem as far as I'm concerned. You want to start with the lot line between the two could not be capable of being moved as proposed without dimensional variance?
Certainly.
That's probably an easier one to tackle.
In response to that, maybe I need to know how the board in the past has interpreted section 306B of the zoning ordinance and how maybe your attorney incorporated that into the analysis, because these lots existed prior to, these 2 lots existed prior to March, I want to give you the right date, March 4th, 1989. And therefore, the way I interpret the zoning code is they're not subject to the 120,000 square foot developable requirement. They're actually subject to the reduced developable area requirements as specified in section 306B. And with those reduced development, the developmental land requirements, both lots are conforming to the zoning code. Both lots as proposed are conforming to the zoning code.
So is there, like you said, both lots existed before, what was the date?
March 4th, 1989, it's in section 306B of the zoning ordinance.
So shouldn't there be proof that both those lots existed before?
That's been submitted to the board. I think we gave you deeds going back to the 50s with both lots recognized as separate parcels. And I believe that was acknowledged by your attorney in their memorandum.
What's the? What's the?
Matt's here, but yeah,
Hey,
so I guess the first question is whether or not 2 lots of record exist and, or
Yeah.
whether those that one lot was merged by ordinance because it's the same owner and it was a substandard lot, but I'll let Matt, of course,
And
explain
I think that's
more
the
about that.
easier issue. I'm happy to present on it.
Yeah, I agree. And I understand your explanation and I get that. I think it is important to address the merger issue first. And just to recap here, so there's a section in the ordinance, I believe it's 113, that talks about when you have a substandard lot of record that is non-conforming by lot area or dimension, something to that extent, which seems to be the case here, it will merge with adjoining lot that is held in the same ownership. And it appears to have been the case in this instance, as these lots are in the same ownership. And I think it's parcel A, the lot to the left looks to be substandard. And the deed, the title history certainly shows that these are treated as 2 separate lots. So I don't really have an issue with the fact that they were at once. The problem is over time, they can merge if one is non-conforming into a lot that is held in the same ownership. And that appears to be the case here because the tax assessors treated this as 1 lot from what I can see. And they may have picked up on that merger issue. And that happens automatically under law. Nothing has to happen formally for that to happen. It's automatic. And there's only a few exceptions to that under 113. And that's if both lots had a principal structure on them independently, or they were treated as two separate lots for tax assessor purposes. And that's all under 113.
I'm sorry. It's not principal structure, it's principal use.
So if there's, well, you can't have two principal structures on a single lot. So that's why the merger would not, it wouldn't merge if you had two houses on each of those lots and one was non-conforming, right? So the non-conformity is allowed to continue. The problem on the plans that were presented is it shows a secondary structure as an accessory use. And you can't have an accessory use without a principal structure. So it looks like if there was a principal structure on that second lot, it may have been abandoned. It is now being used as an accessory structure, and that can't exist without a principal structure associated with it. So, and I think the applicant has every right to come back and present evidence as to whether or not that other lot had a principal structure on it and merger does not apply, and that these were two independent lots for tax purposes. And, in accordance with those two exceptions, I don't think there's enough material before the board here to make that determination, but I think that needs to be sorted out before you even get to the section 306 issue as to whether or not, had enough developable land area and, that calculation. I think the applicant here needs to, has an opportunity to establish whether or not these should be two separate and independent lots. And I don't have any question they were at one point, but based on the plan that was submitted and the fact that there's no principal structure on that other lot, it bears questioning how these lots have not merged if there's only an accessory structure and looks to have been treated as a single lot, especially by the tax assessor.
And actually,
We're prepared to go forward.
and I just want, that existing lot doesn't have that accessory structure is on the same lot, not like the existing lot one doesn't have a structure or an accessory structure. right?
That is a vacant.
That's vacant. And has it always been vacant?
That is a vacant parcel. I would like to just start from where Attorney Landry started and address the issues. When you go back to the tax maps, they treated this as one lot prior to the merger ordinance being passed in 2008. So the tax assessor didn't pick up on anything. Tax assessor didn't determine there was a merger. There was common ownership, and for the convenience, they sent out one tax bill. As we know, the law says that tax assessor maps do not dictate property rights. To the merger ordinance, it's important that we know the plain language of the town's merger ordinance, and that is section 113E3 of the zoning ordinance. It says, where there is a principal use, not structure, principal use, there is no merger. I want to be very clear about that. And that's in subsection A of 113. So where there is a principal use on a lot, there cannot be merger. And I believe that's consistent. I think the town was very wise when they drafted this, and that's consistent with judicial opinions on the doctrine of merger. And essentially, where land is put to beneficial use, we do not have merger. The entire rationale for merger is where you have fallow land. We have put this land to beneficial use, and I'll get into that right now, if I may, please, Madam Chair. May I continue? Thank you. So when you look at the permitted uses in residential A, section 306D of our zoning code, farming is a use. Clearly spelled out in our zoning ordinance that farming is a use. And if there's farming on a lot, it cannot merge. For the benefit of the board, I have historical evidence going back 20 years up till a few years ago of our farming activities. We have animals, fences, we are commercial farmers on the mainland. We bring our animals out here, we raise them, we graze them, we breed them, we bring them back to the mainland. When we do not have farm animals on our land, we produce crops. Every year we produce hay. When we did not have animals eating the grass all summer. In order to confirm that, I suggest anyone speak to Joe Sprague or John Littlefield, because they came every year and produced the crops. When we define farming in our zoning code, just to allay any concerns that our activities are not farming, farming is very broadly defined in our zoning code. Cultivate, and this is from section 202A70. Cultivation of the soil for food products or other useful products of the apiary, field, orchard, vineyard, garden, nursery, or greenhouse, breeding or keeping of animals, raising of livestock, or dairying. I represent to the board, and I'm happy to be sworn in, Mr. Landry, that as far back as I was a small child on that land, this was done. Farming as defined in our zoning code. I would like to present to the board just a series of photos to substantiate the affirmation I'm making before you today. If I may, Madam Chair, what's the procedure for handing these out?
Just hand them out.
Mark it as an exhibit, so it's part of the- You'll have exhibit one and do you want to describe it?
Yeah, we can share these, it's fine.
And I gave you all my copies. If you want to go through it, I will be copies.
I was gonna say,
And I don't know if Mr. Landry would want to swear in myself and my brother Paul, where we can affirm that everything stated is true.
Yeah, what I'm more concerned about is, this is a land use issue. It's a property rights issue, and it's not really a planning board issue, but I think it needs to be heavily vetted and it needs a legal opinion. Because I haven't seen any of the documents you're submitting. I understand if I go back on what you stated on the record is that this lot was considered one lot by the tax assessor, and the lot was used for farming and single family use. Is that correct?
So it was treated as one lot by the tax assessor prior to the merger provision. There was no investigation, a determination by the town that there was a merger. And yes, the main lot had residential structures on it. The vacant lot, the substandard lot, was engaged in farming activities since I was a small child.
Is it still used for that purpose?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, you have to establish that there was a principal use on each lot. Okay. And if it wasn't a single family use and the principal use on that lot was farming, and the zoning official makes a determination or a legal opinion makes a determination that was a legal principal use for that property, then that needs to be assessed. I mean, I don't think this board can make that determination tonight, and I'm not sure it has the authority to do that. Only the zoning official has the authority in the first instance to make a determination as to the legal use of a property, and you're going to have to establish to his satisfaction or their satisfaction that was a legal use. It's similar to when you get into a situation where you've got a legal non-conforming use and someone questions whether or not it is actually a legal non-conforming use. You need to establish that the use was legal at the time before zoning change and something to that effect. So what you're looking at here is you've got to submit evidence to the town to make a determination as to whether or not farming was a principal use on that lot, if it was a separate and distinct lot, and establish that before this board can make a decision. Because that merger issue really needs to be sorted out before this board can accept this plan and understand that it is in fact two separate and distinct lots when the town treats it as one, and you've alleged that the town has always treated it as one. So that begs me to question why it ever became one lot and what the thought process was behind that. And then I'm sure there is a reason for it. I just think it needs to be explored. And those are zoning issues. It's a legal use issue. It's a property rights issue. It's not really something that is before this board at the moment. But I think that needs to be sorted out because I haven't seen any of the stuff that you're submitting. And I appreciate that. I know you've got documents to evidence what use was there, but that really needs to be vetted and reviewed and an opinion rendered to the board before they can make a decision.
And I would have gotten it to you early, Mr. Landry, if I just got your memo this
Oh,
afternoon.
I understand.
What is
I
the
think
proper
you should have every.
procedure? What is the proper procedure for this determination? if it's not before this board? Because I assume this board, charged with approving subdivisions or not, has the authority to make this determination. Maybe I'm mistaken.
Well, we need to establish what the old use of that property was and why the tax assessor treats it as one. I mean, I think that the best thing to do is to submit the documents that you have and what you're using to substantiate that it's two separate and distinct lots, and that you satisfy the provisions of the zoning ordinance and the substandard lot section and the merger section, and that's not applicable to you. We will review it and we can render a legal opinion and a determination can be made. And then, we can discuss it at that point on the next procedural step. But until we review those documents, we will render a legal opinion to the board. And, if there's a negative decision, you'll have appellate rights from that decision, based on our determination.
So it's the board that makes this determination?
Well, you've got an application before the board for this administrative subdivision based on the existence of two lots. You contend that they're two separate and distinct lots. And they've been advised by a legal opinion that the merger provision is applicable, and we need to determine, that it either applies or doesn't apply. You're telling me it doesn't apply and you've submitted evidence. So I'll make that determination before the board can render an approval of your administrative subdivision. It needs to go through and ensure that it complies with the subdivision regulations, zoning regulations, and is consistent with the town ordinances. And that includes a determination as to whether or not it complies with the merger provisions. So we can review the documents that you've sent, and we can render a legal opinion to the board. And if they can vote on it based on that legal opinion and as to whether or not they're satisfied that you've met those standards in rendering a decision.
Would you please swear us in so we can offer evidence under which you can render your legal opinion?
Yeah, no,
Because
sure.
everything we've said is not on the it's on the record, but it's not evidence.
Yeah, and anything you submit, as an exhibit, will be entered into the record. And but yeah, if you could raise your right hand, do you swear to tell you the truth in this matter before the board this evening?
I so swear.
And just state your name again for the record, please.
Blake Filippi.
And Paul Filippi?
Okay, and Paul, if you could raise your right hand again, please. Do you swear to tell the truth in this matter before the board this evening?
Yes, I do. So help me God.
Okay. And if you have any additional documents to submit as an exhibit, I would encourage you to do it at this time. But if you have additional testimony in this regard, I'm sure the board would like to hear it. I'll be taking notes as we go through, as I have been. And then the board may wish to get a legal opinion from the solicitor's office to, make a determination on the merger based on the evidence that you submitted.
Now that I'm under,
We're still learning.
I am too. Now that I'm under oath, I will affirm that the photographs handed out to the board are family records. They are authentic. They represent the state of the property over the past 40 years that I've been alive. I will personally state, based on my own knowledge, that this land has been farmed actively ever since I was a small child. I was born in 1980. So my opinion is based on that evidence. Merger never applied. I would like my brother to offer his own testimony about the historical use of the property as well, please.
Good evening. Good evening. I would like to,
Yeah, pull that down just a little bit.
how's that? That's better. Good evening. I can also testify to the fact that this property. Something wrong? Can I just not?
Stand back.
Can I do this?
Yeah.
A little bit, halfway between where you were and where you are.
How's that? Is that good? Okay. I would like to testify that as long as I can recollect, both of the lots on this property on Champlain Road were used for farming and agricultural activities. And I personally participated in those activities over the last 40 years of my life as well.
One thing this doesn't have on it, is there any years that these were taken? If you could give us an approximate date on when these various photos were taken, that probably would be useful.
I'll create a master one and I'll write on the dates and it will mirror what you have and I can submit it to the to.
I mean, we could say these have all been taken within the last 6 months. I don't think that's true.
No, no. I mean, Catherine Champlin's house is there and a couple of them are,
Yeah,
you know,
that's why I said.
my house is blue in one of them. That's 10 years ago. One, which is actually very interesting, is directly from 2008. There's a garden. It shows Paul's house and there's a horse trailer. And that garden was constructed by Paul and me, I believe, in 2008, summer of
Yeah, you
2008.
just document that.
I'll document it all,
That
but-
would be a good idea.
I appreciate that.
Yes, go ahead.
And the significance of demonstrating the historic use of the property, I guess is the question that is applicable to the merger rule, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. In 113, it talks about, I think it's 113E, as Mr. Philippi had noted, if the substandard lots will not merge if there was already an existing principal use on each of the lots. And what I believe he's contending here is that that second lot was used for farming, you know, through the merger provisions through existing times. If that was ever extinguished or wasn't used for farming, then the principal use was extinguished. The other lot has a structure on it. So the question really becomes a zoning issue or a legal issue as to whether or not farming did in fact exist through all the relevant time periods, and whether or not it was ever abandoned or didn't exist at some point in time. You know, that's really what we're trying to establish here, because these have the other exception is that if these lots were treated as separate and independent lots by the tax assessor before, I think it was December of 17, then that's another exception. But the tax assessor,
17, I'm sorry, I'm 17 or 7?
2007 in the zoning ordinance. So, you know, that I don't know, there's not enough documentation that I have seen to show that. I understand there was testimony that it's always been treated as one lot, so that exception doesn't apply. So yeah, in order to determine whether or not merger applies, typically a principal use is, you know, single family or 3-family house or whatever it is, commercial activity. The applicant's contending here that it was farming, and farming should satisfy principal use of the property.
Farming is a use in the RA zone.
Yeah, and that's a determination that the zoning officer will have to make, and you know, could be by way of a zoning certificate, I suppose, and make a determination and review how long that use has been there based on the evidence that was submitted. You know, that in conjunction with a legal opinion, this board could have enough information to render a decision.
Thank you.
Can I follow up on that?
Well, I just have,
Chris got a question. I'll come back to you.
so other than photographic evidence, I mean, for the people in this room that know the property, might be satisfied with photographic evidence, but from a legal perspective, other than the photographic evidence, what else can further bolster the case that it was used for agriculture? I mean,
Yeah, well,
there's an electric fence around Park.
For a long time.
For a long
Now
time.
it's split rail fence and stone walls.
Right. And that was for the cat.
Yeah.
Right. So I guess I'm asking is, they submitted some pictures, they're gonna put some dates on it. What else is needed? I
Well,
mean,
that's-
I guess, is that a question for the zoning official?
Yeah, it's a question. It's not really within this board's
Okay.
purview or authority. I mean, you need to make a determination that it satisfies what's on the plan is accurate. You know, if it is in fact 2 separate lots, and that's what we're trying to figure out. And the zoning official is going to have to look in. First of all, the use has to have been legal. I mean, I don't know if farming was legal back when it was established.
It's been
Yeah,
legal since
I
1661.
I imagine it was, but you know, just in general, I mean, the use has to be legal, and there has to be evidence that it existed at the time the merger provisions went into effect and have continued since that time. And the zoning official will have to make a determination on what constitutes farming, a farming use. Is it livestock? Is it farm sales? You know, they'll have to make that determination and render an opinion on
It's
it.
defined.
Well,
clearly defined in our zoning code and it's
Yeah,
broad.
it's defined now, but that definition may have changed over time and the applicable time is when merger came into effect. And, we'll just have to make that analysis based on again, I haven't seen any information that you've submitted and I'm happy to look at it and you have every opportunity to establish that merger doesn't apply and certainly give you the opportunity to do that. But at that, if the allegation here is merger doesn't apply because the principal use was farming, then we need to look at the evidence and make a decision on that. And the zoning official will have to make a determination on that, and we can render a legal opinion on that and go from there.
So Blake and Paul should confer with the zoning official as to what further evidence they can present to establish that. I
Yeah.
want them leaving here with as much information as they can get to move on, because if it's a zoning official determination. I mean, I've never seen anything like this, someone having to actually prove they farm a piece of property.
My God, you guys helped me chase my cows back into the field.
From a legal perspective, like crossing your T's and dotting your I's, other than photographs, they should confer with the zoning official what else they need. Maybe a statement from Joe Sprague that he hated for the last 20 years. Maybe that would substantiate it. Maybe Cal said, I have no idea. So that's why I'm asking these questions, so they know exactly what.
Yeah, if it's helpful, I know the issue came up on another application that I wasn't involved in, but the existence of whether or not two lots historically existed on a similar project that this board has heard recently, and I understand a zoning certificate was issued there to explain how it was treated as two lots. I mean, this is a similar situation where you need an opinion from the zoning official to understand if these lots were ever treated as separate lots. There's title history there that looks like they treat them as two lots. But it looks like this really comes down to a zoning issue and whether or not the use has existed and whether it's continued to exist. The merger clause is a zoning provision, in short. So it's a zoning issue. And the zoning enforcement officer is the person in the first instance that has to interpret it. And it'll be their interpretation that decides whether or not it complies with the merger provisions. And this board will have that information supplied to it and perhaps a legal opinion in that effect too. And then the applicant will know where it stands in terms of its determination. Because this board, if the board isn't satisfied that this is in fact two separate lots, it can't approve, the subdivision. I mean, there's another issue with this plan that we haven't even got into yet as to whether or not, even if it was two legal lots, if they could even do what they're asking to without the dimensional relief. And I know the applicants touched on that, but I really think the merger thing is first and foremost, and then we can address the other issues.
Sosha?
At what point does a use become abandoned? How long do they have to not farm for that use to be abandoned?
I don't know off the top of my hand if the zoning ordinance defines it. There's certain provisions. If you have a fire, you have about a year to replace it. In this case, I mean, abandonment means you have no intent or show an intent not to continue the use in the future. I mean, it's usually a pretty blatant example. I'm sure the ordinance defines it. I can't think of it off the top of my head, but it's usually a very firm determination that the use is not going to be continued.
May I speak for a moment, Counselor? It's Paul Filippi. If the members of this board, a jury of my peers, if there's anyone on this board who can remember a time when the property was not used as farming, I think all the people on this board have personal experience, and they've probably witnessed over the years the activities that's taken place on certain parcels of land on this island. And so if there's anyone on this board in their own experience who can remember a time that was not used as farming, would that matter?
Well, the board can certainly use its personal experience. Just to go back to that abandonment issue, the ordinance does define it, and I can just give you the brief definition of it. If a non-conforming use, hold on, abandonment shall consist of some overt act or failure to act which would lead one to believe that the owner of the property neither claims nor retains any interest in its continuation. So, you know, it's really some overt intent to abandon the use. I mean, converting it to one farming activity to another farming activity, you know, is still consistent with the use. It's really ceasing to use it for whatever it was using it for. And if there's some lapse in time.
It's a good thing that Paul and I have been farmers since the day we were born and probably will be until the day we die, because there was never an intent to abandon it. There wasn't use on the property.
So worst case scenario, they couldn't get a zoning certificate or enough information that we would be able to grant this. It appears as though you have enough land to subdivide. And could you just come forward? Is the reason you're not coming forward to subdivide is because of this pre-existing lot?
No, so if you look at the total developable land, I believe it's around 230,000 square feet. So to have the conforming lots, actually, there's a real big question on whether let me go back, I'm sorry. When you read section 306B, I think we can reduce the size of our existing lot.
I mean, because it says 151 on one and 122 on the other.
But you have to look at the developable. So the developable, I think we have about 230,000 square feet of developable. So if this was, we were trying to create two new lots, we would be 10,000 square feet short. For the board's edification, as certified farmers who have a farming certificate, who pay taxes as farmers, there's a lot of work that we can do on the land that other people can't, that could get us that 10,000 feet, and we could do it in about 2 weeks. We don't want to go that route. We would just prefer to subdivide. We don't want to start moving a lot of dirt around. It's not our intent. But we can. But that's why we're coming here first. Thank you.
To find out why it was abandoned, why the town combined the two lots.
You're gonna have to go back to Edie Blaine from probably the 70s or 80s. I mean, it's old.
She's still alive.
I know. Well, I'll ask her, but it's clear in my historical research that this was treated as one lot by the tax assessor only prior to the merger
I mean,
provisions.
it doesn't seem fair to you that they decide to merge out of convenience. So they better have a good reason.
I understand tax assessors do this for convenience. I'm not going to cast aspersions on it. Our courts have said that exercise of convenience does not dictate property rights. So I'm not going to cast aspersions on them for merging them for tax purposes in the 80s.
But we can't, I feel that we should not use that as a reason.
Thank you.
And that will be part of the discussion.
All right.
Thank you.
But Paul, to your point, after, that's why I asked the question about what further evidence, because obviously it's review of whatever you submit to zoning official. We'll see it, I'm sure.
Yes.
Based on,
Well, either that or we'll get a zoning
or
certificate,
zoning certificate.
which is more
And then
likely.
testimony at the board level, again, we obviously.
I thought it was Secretary of Appeals.
Yeah, well, as I said, most of us have been around here for quite a while and know what's going on in the island. But I do know that legally, you have to have some information besides by saying, yeah, I've driven by there for the last 20 years and I know it's true.
That's kind of.
why I was-
I want to make sure you get
Which wants something that's concrete that
what you actually.
somebody 5 years from now goes back and looks at, understands why it was ruled the way it was and what was stated and why. So that we don't go through this again. Well, I don't know why it was done that way. This time we want to document it so that we know why we either did or did not do something.
I have a
Thank you,
question
Marcy.
for Jen.
Okay,
I'm sorry, excuse me. Jenna, is there someone giving zoning certificates now? Okay, so you're, okay. But there was a rule there when you couldn't get zoning certificates, and I didn't want you to have that roadblock.
okay. So you know where you're headed now for the next month? Okay.
Yeah,
Besides killing yourself with that microphone,
I
is there
know.
anything else?
I know, nothing else. Thank you to the board and thank you, Attorney Lynch.
Thank you very much. We will hopefully see you next month.
Thank you.
All right, thanks a lot.
Have a good evening.
Okay, one more back.
I have, yeah, Jen has that.
I just think, as a history teacher, you need to document.
Didn't have much time after getting the memo
Yeah.
today.
That I do, now I'm doing it. That I do understand. I mean, we also got it the same time you did it. We were also surprised. So anyway, we'll deal with this, so fine.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Jen, before we go on, do we have to be out of here at 7:00?
No,
Okay,
I have an appointment at 6, so
okay. I think most of us are going to find that we're getting a little tired after about. So, Cindy, why are you here?
I know, first of all, it's the stupid. I'm on us. And I know it's in.
It's closed. It's closed. Yeah, so thank you for coming, but no, we can't use you.
no, that was,
Fine, so it would come back.
it can come
final.
back for fine,
Final.
but it isn't a public hearing, but you always take public comment, so, but there isn't another.
No,
No one's spoke. But I
No.
have thoughts and.
And always know you can write too. You can email Jen and that can be presented.
Well, now,
Well, it's too late now, but in the future.
The planning board approves. The planning board, they voted to approve the master preliminary plan for that application, but it would come back for final. But that would be very limited changes at that point, you know, to the plan.
they've already approved their
The
final.
lot
they're-
configuration has already been set, yeah.
Right, so final, they're approving the, you know, the information that's on the Mylar and verifying that the conditions in the preliminary master plan approval have been completed.
Okay, thank you for caring. Okay. We have two things, and I don't know how people are feeling, get a little tired at this point. I was wondering about having a special meeting for section 513 in large houses. And I think we need to spend some time on them, and we're frankly, on the large houses, we're running out of time. We have got to get something by the end of September to the town council. And I just feel that we haven't had a chance to really sit and work through that with Allison and some of the suggestions that she's had.
Well, the 513, with all the highlighted stuff, I think that shouldn't take.
That should not take very long at all.
Getting close on that one.
You're
Yeah,
very
no,
close
I
on
just, looking at that, that's, in my estimation, pretty much done, but, large home.
Takes time. You have more. Now, we can,
Yeah, the large home might be,
I think it needs a time on its own. And I do want to approve, we do have 2 sets of minutes. So
so approve the 2 sets of minutes.
I want to approve the 2 sets of minutes. So if you did not have a chance to finish looking at them, if you take a quick look right now. And then Jen could also give us some dates that we
Yeah.
could,
I would have to email you dates.
Okay. Okay, then let me go at it the other way. Is there anybody who knows they're going to be away sometime in the next couple of weeks that can say to Jen, I absolutely cannot meet on such and such a date?
Right, I cannot meet the last week of this month, Jen. Meet on July 18th. Days in August.
Kind of hoping maybe we could get something together for one day next week.
Be nice.
That sounds like that would work for you too.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll have Allison check her schedule because we do need her. And Jen has to find whether or not we have a room available.
Yeah.
25th to 28th.
I'm here, so I'm not a problem.
Never a problem. We don't usually meet on
Thank you.
Thursdays, right?
What about,
I would recommend 4 o'clock. How does that work with most people's schedules? The other option would be at lunchtime, the other option would be at 5.
Not fine.
I mean, we did this at 5. I'm sorry we didn't start at 4. We would have had an extra hour, but we had listed it on the agenda as, for the year as 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
And so we left it, but I do think if we could go back to the 4 o'clock.
I know that's 21st.
So if we- Well, if we meet at 4, we would certainly be out of here by 7 because our tushes would be tired.
Right, that's why I have to go.
Right.
The only day I can't do is Thursday, the 21st.
Oh, yeah, I have to.
She's got to
Yeah.
find the calendar, make sure the room's available.
I'm Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday are the only days I could come out
It's a
next
subject
week.
that requires a fresh mind.
Yes, I was gonna say, I think we're running out of steam.
Yeah, I can't.
Okay, let me go.
Must be Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and I'll see what is available.
You say no to
No
Thursday?
Thursday.
No, no Thursday, the 21st.
So Tuesday, Wednesday, Tuesday or Wednesday.
Okay,
Right, and that's,
see what we can do. Okay, we've got 2 sets of minutes to take a look at. First one is I'll make a motion that the minutes be approved for May 9th. Do I have a second? Okay. Are there any additions or corrections? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, and the second set is, find it. I make a motion that the minutes be approved for May 11th, 2022. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, okay. Any corrections or additions? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion
Mhm.
carries.
and I just have.
Which day?
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday
Not
next week?
Thursday, Thursday, she,
Well,
okay.
it might be the following.
Is it the following, the last week of the month?
So if you can't, we're probably out then, so if you can't do it the last.
Yeah, it must be next week.
I think we're,
But it might not.
Could be the 19th or the 20th.
Right, I'm saying,
would anybody have a problem meeting at lunchtime?
No, that's
Typically
even
not.
better for
Yeah.
me.
Actually, I kind of like the idea of lunchtime. Meet from noon to 1 or 1:30, and people can go back.
Yeah.
And that's not likely to be as, the boardroom's not likely to be quite as busy. And by the way, the Old Harbor Task Force for next Tuesday is canceled, so that's fine. That was at noon. So there's a good chance that if Corey signed up for me like she was supposed to, the room would be available on Tuesday. So we want to say tentatively, we'll meet next Tuesday at noon, and Jen will confirm that tomorrow after she can look at the calendar, because I did have that room scheduled for the Old Harbor Task Force, and we are not meeting.
Okay.
I would just like to do 5:13 and get it done quickly, if we
Jen,
can.
if you have to, can we meet at the community center?
no, we're.
Thank you.
Oh, okay, that's good to know, I did not realize that. All right. Okay, that's fine, I don't disagree with it, I just need to know it. Okay. I make a motion that the meeting be adjourned. Thank you. Okay, a second. All those in favor say aye. Motion carries. Thank you all very much.
Good night, everybody.